Nancy Collins squeezed the last drops of paint from the tube, trying not to smear the kitchen table. Her one-room apartment had long since turned into a miniature hair salon. Everywhere were supplies, jars of dye, foil, plastic wrap. Under the sink, boxes of professional cosmetics were stacked, and in the hallway on the floor sat two folding chairs, one regular, one for haircuts. "I told you, it won't be enough for Stella," Nancy grumbled, looking at the pitiful remnants of paint. "Her gray hair is like some kind of curse. It devours everything." It was Saturday evening. Outside, October rain poured down, turning the neighborhood into a blurred gray smear. The last client had left an hour ago, yet Nancy still couldn't bring herself to tidy up. Fatigue weighed on her like a lead blanket. Tomorrow was Sunday, the only day she could rest. The sound of the door opening made her frown. Her husband, Anthony, had returned from the corporate party earlier than she expected. "Hey, baby," he said, tossing his jacket onto the coat rack, missing the hook but not bothering to pick it up. "What's for my hungry husband?" Nancy sighed. Anthony, a mid-level manager at a trading company, had two traits. He was always hungry at any time of day or night and never noticed her exhaustion. "See, I just finished working. Order pizza or heat up yesterday's stew." "Here we go with your feminist stuff again." Anthony plopped onto the couch, pulling out his smartphone. "Work, career, my mom." "Your mom?" Nancy cut him off, gathering her tools into a case. "She's already called 3 times today, asking how much I earned and suggesting I get a job at the Locon salon as an administrator. They'll hire you through connections. I exercise with the director in the same fitness group." It was the same topic every time. Paula Smith, a former deputy principal and now a retiree with an active lifestyle, considered the hairdressing profession unworthy of her daughter-in-law with an economics degree. The fact that Nancy, at 32, earned more than her manager's son caused her mother-in-law particular irritation. "Well, Mom's right. Stability, a schedule, vacation." "Not your freelancing nonsense," Anthony said, emphasizing the last word as if it were some indecent disease. Nancy remained silent. She had no energy to argue. After 8 clients in a row, 8 hours on her feet without a lunch break, she only wanted one thing: to lie down and not move. She washed her tools, packed everything into her professional case, and trudged to the bathroom. Her hands were red and cracked from the chemicals again. The cream she couldn't even afford for herself but prescribed for clients helped a little. 3 more months, Nancy thought, staring at her drawn face with dark circles under her eyes in the mirror. 3 more months, and I'll have 100,000. The dream of her own salon hadn't appeared immediately. At first, Nancy just did side jobs while in college: hair, hairstyles, light makeup. Then she mastered coloring, took courses, and started taking clients at home. Her first clients were friends, their acquaintances, neighbors. 3 years ago, when the publishing house where she worked as an accountant went bankrupt, her home business became her main source of income. That's when Nancy realized she wanted more: her own salon, a team, a brand. A place where she could create without being distracted by endless cooking for her husband and visits from her mother-in-law with yet another round of advice. "I've saved almost 100,000, she told Anthony over dinner on their wedding anniversary. "I want to open a salon. Small, but my own." Her husband choked on a chicken cutlet. 100,000? "What, are you hiding a stash?" "It's not a stash, Anthony. It's my earned money, which I've been saving for development." "I thought you were saving for a fur coat or a vacation for us," he said, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "A salon? Seriously? Do you realize how much trouble that is? Rent, taxes, employees. You'll go bankrupt in 6 months. I've calculated everything. There's a perfect option: a basement space in a 9-story building. Cheap, cheap. Utilities connected, good foot traffic. Basement, Anthony snorted, burying himself in his phone again. Great. A prestigious salon in the building's basement. Maybe open it in the sewer grate, it'll be even cheaper. Nancy gritted her teeth. This was exactly the reaction she expected. Anthony had always been like this, a skeptic, a lazybones, someone who does nothing himself and won't let others act. It's temporary. The first step. Then expansion. Sure. I totally believe you, he said, reaching for a bottle of wine. Let's just drink to us instead of discussing these fantasies. Her mother-in-law found out about Nancy's plans the next day. Of course, Anthony couldn't help but complain to his mom about his wife's madness. Nancy, dear, Paula appeared at the door with a container of pastries Nancy hated. Is it true that you want to throw money away on some salon? Hello, Paula, Nancy tried to smile. I'm not throwing money away, I'm investing. Investing, she says. Her mother-in-law walked into the kitchen, opening cabinets in a managerial way in search of a plate. Do you know how many businesses fail in their first year? 80%, Nancy countered, taking the container. And 20 survive and grow. I'll be in that 20. You're full of self-confidence, Paula pursed her lips. And if it doesn't work? You'll be blowing family money to the wind. These are my personal savings. Oh, personal? And the family isn't a priority anymore? Anthony says, you wanted a fur coat, that I understand. But a hair salon in the basement, that's nonsense. Ordinary female nonsense. Paula talked nonstop, listing every possible failure, inspections, fines, theft, competition, seasonality, crisis. Nancy silently brewed tea, realizing that arguing was pointless. In short, her mother-in-law summarized, pushing aside an empty cup, you're still young and foolish. Trust experience, bankruptcy is guaranteed. And money is better invested in an apartment. There's a 3-room flat for sale nearby. We could help you and Anthony with the down payment, plus your $100,000, and we'd live close by, as a family. I see, Nancy thought with a smirk. Her mother-in-law wanted them closer, to control every step. And, of course, the money too. Thank you for the advice, Paula. I'll think about it. But the decision was already made. The 50-square-meter basement space came to her at an astonishingly low price. The owner, an elderly Mexican man, had rented it as a storage space, but the last tenant had moved out because of dampness. Nancy negotiated 2 months free rent to carry out renovations. Anthony, of course, refused to help. This is your project, you figure it out. And Paula began spreading rumors among the neighbors. Her daughter-in-law was squandering family money on a pointless project. Nancy ignored it. She hired a construction crew, bargained for discounts on materials, and went to the stores herself. At night, she drew design plans. In the morning, she rushed to the site. During the day, she continued seeing clients at home. Are you crazy? Anthony would ask when she returned late, her eyes red with exhaustion. Why do you need all this? Because I want to grow, she replied. I want more than just surviving from paycheck to paycheck. Am I not providing enough for you? Anthony would erupt. So, I'm a bad provider? Another argument would start. Nancy grew tired of debating and simply did her work. In February, Nancy's salon opened its doors to the first clients. The damp basement had been transformed into a cozy space with good ventilation, bright lighting, and stylish minimalist design. 2 chairs, a wash station, a small waiting area with magazines, and a coffee machine. For the first month, Nancy worked alone, mopping floors, attending clients, ordering supplies, managing social media, answering calls. Her hands cracked from chemicals, her back ached from endless bending over sinks. She would come home and collapse, only to wake at 6 in the morning to prepare everything for the opening again. Gradually, regular clients appeared. Word of mouth worked. Many followed her from her home practice, bringing friends and relatives. This is temporary. Anthony shook his head when she celebrated her first profits. Novelty attracts people. Soon, everyone will leave. It won't last long, her mother-in-law echoed, peeking into the salon with a forced smile. During a crisis, people cut spending on beauty first. But the clients didn't leave. On the contrary, they kept coming. Soon Nancy realized she couldn't handle everything alone and hired another stylist, Olivia, an experienced colorist with a solid client base. A month later, manicurist Monica joined, taking the corner table by the window. The salon buzzed like a beehive. Nancy could finally breathe a little easier. She no longer had to stretch herself thin across everything. Profits grew, and she began saving for expansion. She started coming home earlier, sometimes even managing to cook dinner. Anthony had thawed, no longer grumbling about her obsession with some unclear business. Even her mother-in-law had changed her tone. She no longer predicted imminent bankruptcy but asked, "How's your little salon doing?" Nancy felt that the hardest part was behind her. She had survived financial strain, the distrust of loved ones, and exhausting work without days off. Now, only growth awaited her. She didn't know that the real trials were still ahead, and that betrayal would come from the most unexpected quarter. A year after the salon opened, Nancy no longer remembered how suffocated she had felt by doubts and exhaustion. Her creation had strengthened and flourished. 2 shifts of stylists served clients from morning till evening, and for popular procedures, appointments were booked 2 weeks in advance. "We're cramped, Olivia," Nancy said, looking at the administrator who was struggling to fit yet another regular client into the schedule. "We need to expand." Olivia, who had moved from stylist to administrator and had become Nancy's right hand, nodded. "It's about time." The girls are elbowing each other, and Sarah's massage table is stuck in the storage room. The main floor is too crowded to work properly. Nancy looked around the salon, her little basement kingdom. Everything here was infused with her energy, her will, and her persistence. Every inch of space she had planned herself, choosing materials, colors, and layouts. But now it was time to move forward. "I'll start looking for a new space," she decided. Not a basement, an actual ground floor location, with display windows, parking nearby. "Can we afford it?" Olivia, not only a capable administrator but also a pragmatist, asked. "Rent on the ground floor is several times higher." "We can," Nancy nodded confidently. "I've been saving for expansion for a year, and the bank has promised a loan at good rates. We have an excellent credit history and stable profits." On the way home, Nancy dreamed about the new salon. It would be spacious and bright, with panoramic windows and a stylish sign. A cosmetology room, massage area, hairdressing hall, a separate space for manicures and pedicures. Maybe even a small cafe for clients. Her dreams were interrupted by a call. Her mother-in-law's name flashed on the screen. "Good evening, Paula," Nancy answered, trying to sound neutral. Nancy, her mother-in-law's voice was suspiciously sweet. "Are you coming for dinner tonight? I made your favorite pies, with cabbage." Nancy suppressed a sigh. She had never been drawn to Paula's pies, dry, bland, with tough filling. But her mother-in-law firmly believed that her daughter-in-law adored her culinary talents. "Sorry, I won't be able to today. I have a meeting with the banker about a loan." "A loan?" Paula's voice took on anxious notes. "Are you planning to borrow money? Do you have problems?" Anthony said everything was going well. "Everything's fine," Nancy tried to sound calm. "It's for business expansion. I'm moving to a bigger space." "Oh, dear," her mother-in-law said, with barely concealed disapproval. "You're always in a hurry. Things have only just started to pick up, and you're already jumping into adventures. Alone, that's bondage. You are an economist, you should understand. I've calculated everything, Paula. Expansion is necessary, there are many clients, and the stylists are already on top of each other. Well, look, her mother-in-law sighed meaningfully. I'm just worried about you, as a mother. As a mother who was never really a mother to me, Nancy thought, but aloud she said, "Thank you for your concern. Say hello to Wendy." Wendy, Anthony's younger sister, an unfinished student of pedagogy, lived with their mother, scraping by with odd jobs. For 5 years, she had planned to finish college, but it never got beyond talk. Wendy's worried too, her mother-in-law cooed. She says you've completely disappeared into work. Family isn't a priority anymore. Nancy bit her lip. Accusations of neglecting her family had become routine ever since her business took off. Anthony and his family seemed unable to forgive her for her success. "Goodbye, Paula, I have another line," she lied and hung up. Her mood was spoiled. Instead of enjoying the prospect of expansion, Nancy once again felt guilty, as if her success were a crime against her family. Anthony received the news about moving the salon surprisingly calmly. He sat on the couch, scrolling through something on his phone, and only shrugged. "Your choice. The main thing is that there's enough money for living." "There will be," Nancy nodded. "We have good prospects. If everything goes according to plan, in a year we'll recoup the investment and reach a new level of profit." Her husband yawned without looking up from the screen. "Listen, the guys and I are going for a barbecue on Saturday. You don't mind, do you?" Nancy sighed. That was the extent of his interest in her life, her dreams, and her plans. Anthony hadn't asked about the new space, the loan, or how she was feeling about such an important step. Just and the conversation moved on to barbecue. "Of course, I don't mind," she replied, turning away to hide her disappointment. "I'll probably go check out the new space on Saturday. My realtor sent me a great option on Zvezny." Anthony smirked, still staring at his phone. "On Zvezny, of course. You're practically a star now, businesswoman. Just don't get too full of yourself." It was a typical tease. But Nancy detected something new in her husband's voice: envy, irritation. She couldn't pinpoint it exactly, but she felt a growing chasm between them. And the more successful her business became, the wider that chasm grew. The new space turned out to be exactly what she had dreamed of. A bright corner hall on the first floor of a residential complex, with a separate entrance and large windows. Freshly renovated, good ventilation, all utilities in order. And the price, high, but reasonable for the market. "I'll take it," Nancy told the realtor after a 10-minute inspection. "When can we sign the contract?" "The owner is ready even tomorrow," he smiled. "But I'd recommend showing the documents to a lawyer first." "Of course," Nancy nodded. "I have a good specialist." She was already imagining how she would transform the space: soft beige walls, dark wood, comfortable sea-wave-colored chairs, plasma screens, calming background music, aroma lamps with lavender and mint. A paradise for clients, and a sanctuary for herself. The move took 2 months. First the renovation, then buying equipment, moving old furniture, hiring new staff. Nancy was spinning like a squirrel on a wheel, supervising every detail. She wanted everything to be perfect. On the day of the new salon's opening, a line formed at the door. Regular clients came bearing flowers and gifts. Journalists from the local newspaper were taking photos for an article about the young businesswoman who had conquered the district's beauty industry. "I'm so proud of you," Olivia said, weaving through the crowd with a tray of champagne. "You made the impossible possible." Nancy smiled, accepting congratulations, but deep down she felt a strange emptiness. Anthony hadn't come. "Work meeting, you understand." Her mother-in-law sent a dry message, "Congratulations on the opening. Hope you don't go under with that rent." It wasn't until later in the evening, after most of the guests had left, that Nancy saw a familiar figure in the doorway. Paula, dressed in her finest eggplant-colored dress, entered the salon arm in arm with neighbor Lily. "And here's our businesswoman," her mother-in-law announced loudly, heading toward Nancy. "Lily, just look at this beauty. And all of this, my daughter-in-law. Smart girl, did it all herself. Well, of course, I helped with advice. She wouldn't have managed without me." Nancy almost choked on her champagne. Advice. Paula hadn't said a single kind word about the salon since it opened, only criticism, predictions of failure, and endless reproaches. Yes, Paula always believed in my potential," Nancy said with a restrained smile, looking her mother-in-law straight in the eye. "Especially when she said I'd be bankrupt in 6 months. Lily coughed nervously, but Paula didn't even blink. "Oh, darling," she chirped, hugging her daughter-in-law. "I was just worried. Mothers always worry about their children. And you did well, you proved that my faith in you wasn't in vain." Nancy counted to 10 in her mind. Arguing was pointless. Paula would never admit she was wrong. "Thank you for coming," she said, gently pulling away from the clingy embrace. "Sorry, I need to attend to other guests." All evening, her mother-in-law walked around the salon, telling anyone who would listen how she had supported her daughter-in-law through the difficult early days of the business, how she had given valuable management advice, suggested equipment, and even helped with the first clients. "She wouldn't have managed without me," Paula repeated, accepting compliments for such a talented daughter-in-law. "I always said, the key is the right mentorship." Nancy listened to these tales peripherally, marveling at the human ability to rewrite history in one's favor. But she didn't want to openly argue on the day of the opening. Let her mother-in-law stroke her ego. The important thing was that the salon was running and thriving. Late in the evening, when the last guests had left and the staff were cleaning up, Anthony walked into the salon. He surveyed the space with an appraising look and whistled. "Wow, this turned out amazing, babe. I mean, I expected something impressive, but this is really top-notch." "Thank you," Nancy smiled tiredly. "It's a shame you couldn't come earlier." "You know how it is," Anthony grimaced. "The meeting ran late, barely managed to get away. But I'm glad I made it at least at the end." "Mom says it was packed." "Yes, a lot of people came," Nancy nodded. "By the way, your mom was there too. She told everyone how she helped me with advice and support." Anthony chuckled. "Well, you know Mom. She loves being the center of attention. But it doesn't change anything. This is your salon and your achievement." Nancy looked at her husband in surprise. For the first time in a long while, he acknowledged her accomplishment without sarcasm or hidden resentment. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means a lot to me. Hey, what if we celebrate this?" Anthony suggested unexpectedly. "I booked a table. We can still make it if we leave now." The restaurant was the most expensive in the city. Anthony had never taken her there before. He didn't see the point in overpaying for show. "Seriously?" Nancy could not hide her surprise. "What about all the pointless splurges on fancy places? Today's a special occasion." Anthony put his arm around her shoulders. "My wife has become a true businesswoman. That deserves a proper celebration." On the way to the restaurant, Nancy couldn't shake a strange feeling. Something had changed in her husband. He was unusually attentive, asking about the renovation, inquiring about future plans, as if he was seeing her business for the first time. At El Dorado, they were treated as honored guests. Anthony had indeed booked the best table by the window, ordered expensive wine, seafood, and dessert. Nancy enjoyed the evening, but her intuition whispered that something was off. Anthony had never been this interested before. To your success, he raised his wine glass. And to our future. To our future, Nancy echoed, sipping her wine. Only at home, when they were getting ready for bed, Anthony asked casually, "So, how much is your salon worth now? I mean, if you decided to sell it?" Nancy froze with her toothbrush in her mouth. "Ah, so that's it, the interest, the compliments, the expensive dinner, it's all about money. I'm not planning to sell," she said, carefully enunciating each word. "Never. I'm just asking," Anthony shrugged, but something resembling disappointment flickered in his eyes. "I'm curious what a successful business is worth." "Expensive," Nancy cut him off. "Very expensive." She felt a wall growing between them again. Now Nancy knew for certain, her husband didn't just envy her success, he wanted a share. A share of something she had created entirely on her own, without his help or support. 6 months after moving into the new space, the salon was thriving. The staff had grown to 20, including 2 cosmetologists, 3 hairdressers, nail and pedicure specialists, an eyebrow artist, a lash maker, and a massage therapist. A line of best-selling cosmetics under the Nancy brand had been launched. The client base exceeded 500 regular visitors. Nancy was hardly ever home. She arrived late at night and left early in the morning. Anthony no longer reproached her. In fact, he barely spoke to her at all, immersed in his own world. Sometimes Nancy felt they were just neighbors sharing an apartment, not husband and wife. Paula had also changed her approach. She no longer criticized the salon but boasted about it everywhere. "My daughter-in-law, our family business. I always said she would succeed." She even started regularly coming for treatments, demanding special treatment as the matriarch. One day, Nancy overheard a conversation between her mother-in-law and one of the staff. "Of course, Nancy is talented," Paula said while getting her manicure. "But without our family support, she wouldn't have managed. Her husband helped choose the space. With the renovation, I advised on management issues. 30 years in a leadership role at a school, after all." The stylist nodded politely, but her eyes betrayed her disbelief. She didn't believe a single word. Everyone in the salon knew that Nancy had built the business entirely on her own, without any family help. Nancy considered intervening but decided against it. Let her mother-in-law indulge her ego. The important thing was that the truth was known to those who truly mattered. That evening, on her way home, Nancy thought about the strange twist of fate. Just a year ago, her family had doubted the salon's success, predicting bankruptcy and mocking her women's fantasies. Now, they were trying to claim her achievements as if they were a shared family success. "I wonder," she thought, stepping into the elevator, "how far they'll go in their quest to get a piece of my pie." She didn't yet know that the answer would come very soon, and it would be far more frightening than she could imagine. The February cold burned her face. Nancy wrapped her scarf tighter as she left the salon close to midnight. The day had been insane. 2 stylists had fallen ill with the flu, so she had to man the chairs herself, taking clients without a break. Her hands ached, her back throbbed, but a sense of satisfaction filled her. The salon ran like clockwork, even under extreme circumstances. Sitting in her car, Nancy suddenly remembered she had left the office keys in her desk. Swearing under her breath, she returned to the salon doors. A faint light shone through the blinds. Strange, she was sure she had turned everything off when she left. The security system hadn't triggered, which meant someone from inside. Could Olivia have come back for something? Or the cleaner, Kate? Nancy quietly turned the key and carefully cracked the door open. Voices. A low, unfamiliar male voice and a high, prim female voice came from her office. A third voice made her freeze, Anthony. Her husband, who should have been at home after his work event. "The documents are in perfect order," the stranger said. "All utilities are new. The wiring was completely replaced last year." The equipment is imported, and all warranties are valid for at least 2 more years. No further investment is needed, Anthony added. Just step in and start working. The client base is 500 people. All contacts are in the CRM system. We even told the staff to stay, so there won't be any personnel issues. Nancy silently moved closer. Through the slightly open office door, she saw a man of about 50 in a costly suit with an impeccable haircut sitting in her chair. Next to him, a well-groomed woman with perfect nails and a tight bun had placed a tablet on the table. Anthony shifted nervously from foot to foot. And on the edge of the sofa, sitting like the mistress of the house, was her mother-in-law. On the table lay familiar folders, documents about the salon that Nancy had never shown anyone, the business plan, financial statements, contracts with suppliers, and floor plans. How had they gotten here? $1 million is a fair price, the woman said, scrolling through the tablet. Considering the location, popularity, and profitability. I think, John, this is an excellent investment. This area is developing. In a year, there will be a shopping center. Client flow will only increase. Is the price final? The man asked, twirling an expensive pen. Or is there room for negotiation? I think we can discuss a discount, Anthony hastily interjected. After all, we are interested in a quick deal. Of course, dear, Paula cooed. We are reasonable people. Besides, I always told Nancy not to spread herself too thin with this business. She already has plenty of work, home, family, and here, such stress, such responsibility. Nancy felt her blood pound in her temples. Betrayal, that's what this was called. Her husband and mother-in-law were trying to sell her business behind her back. Her creation. Her dream. Her future. And where is the owner herself? The man asked. I would like to speak directly with her. She's been a bit unwell lately, Paula sighed with feigned sadness. Overworked, you know. The doctors recommended rest. So my son and I have taken all responsibilities upon ourselves. But legally, the salon is registered under her name, the woman clarified. Yes, Anthony nodded. But we are family, all decisions are made together. And as her husband, I have the right to manage jointly owned property. And Mom, she's just helping with negotiations. She has experience. Nancy decided she had heard enough. She flung open the door and stepped into the office. Everyone fell silent as if on cue. Anthony went pale. Her mother-in-law forced a smile. The strangers stared at her with interest. Good evening, Nancy said calmly, approaching the table. I assume you wanted to meet the salon's owner. I'm Nancy Collins. So, I gather you are potential buyers of my business, about selling which I know absolutely nothing. Nancy, darling, Paula fussed. We wanted to surprise you. You've been so tired lately, so exhausted, sweetie. Anthony stepped toward his wife, but she held out her hand to stop him. Will you introduce me to your guests? There was a metallic edge in her voice. The man stood and extended his hand. John Rogers, owner of a chain of beauty salons. We are interested in acquiring your business to expand our network. Ashley Brooks, the woman introduced herself. Chief Financial Officer of the company. Pleased to meet you, Nancy shook both their hands. But here's the problem, my salon is not for sale. And it never has been. I never even considered the possibility. Anthony coughed nervously. Nancy, at least let's discuss the offer. $1 million is an excellent price. We're all adults here, Paula intervened. And we should make decisions with our heads, not emotions. In a crisis, it's better to sell a business at a good price than risk bankruptcy later. A crisis? Nancy smiled wryly. Our monthly profit growth is 15%. What crisis? Even more reason, her mother-in-law chimed in, now is the perfect time to sell. While things are good. Later, it might get worse. John watched the argument carefully, tapping a pen on the table. Ashley was quickly typing something on her tablet. Forgive me for intruding on a family conversation, John finally said. But it seems we've been misled. We were told the owner was ready to sell the business and was just waiting for a worthy offer. You've been deceived, Nancy cut him off. I am not going to sell the salon. Not now, not ever. In that case, Ashley stood, putting her tablet in her bag. We apologize for the disturbance. Indeed, the businessman nodded. Though it's a pity. Your salon made a good impression on me. If you ever change your mind. He handed Nancy a business card. She took it automatically but immediately set it down on the table. I won't change my mind. Thank you for your interest, but my answer is final. When the door closed behind the visitors, a heavy silence fell over the office. Nancy stared at her husband and mother-in-law, trying to contain the fury boiling inside her. How dare you? Her voice trembled with restrained anger. How could you negotiate the sale of my business behind my back? Nancy, you don't understand. Anthony took a step toward her. We only wanted what's best. For all of us. For all of us? Nancy laughed bitterly. Or for yourselves. Where did you get these documents? How did you even find these buyers? The documents were on the computer, Anthony muttered. You gave me the password yourself when you asked me to fix the laptop. And I found the buyers, Paula declared proudly. Lily's son works as a driver for Rogers. I found out everything, arranged the meeting. I thought you'd be happy. $1 million doesn't just lie on the street. So you decided everything for me? Nancy felt something inside snap. Without my knowledge, without my consent. Decided to sell what I've been building for years. Into which I poured my soul, my health, all my strength. Enough dramatizing. Her mother-in-law raised her voice. It's just a salon. As if that's the only thing you have in life. You have a family, a husband, and all you think about is your business. And why did you even need this money? Nancy squinted. $1 million is no small sum. Anthony and Paula exchanged glances. Then her husband sighed and admitted, Wendy is getting married. She needs an apartment. And Mom, well, she needs money for a comfortable retirement too. Wendy? Nancy could not believe her ears. Your sister, who hasn't finished college in 5 years. Who changes boyfriends every 3 months. And for her sake, you decided to sell my business? Not just for her, her mother-in-law interjected. Anthony needs money too. He has debts. Debts? Nancy turned to her husband. What debts? Anthony lowered his eyes. I got a little carried away with sports betting. Then I took out a loan to try to win it back. It didn't work out. And how much do you owe? $120,000, Anthony mumbled. The collectors are already calling. Nancy felt the room swim before her eyes. Her husband, a gambler with debts. Her family was planning to sell her business to solve their financial problems. And she had known nothing. Not noticed anything, buried in work. Get out, she said quietly. Both of you. Now. Nancy, come on. Paula tried to hug her daughter-in-law, but Nancy pulled away. Out. Nancy snapped, losing the last of her composure. Out of my salon. Out of my life. You'll regret this. Her mother-in-law hissed viciously, changing before Nancy's eyes. We tried to do this the easy way. But if you're so stubborn, it'll be the hard way. Is that a threat? Nancy crossed her arms. A warning, Paula cut in, grabbing her bag. Things happen in business. Fires, thefts, vandalism. Better to agree peacefully. Mom. Anthony grabbed his mother's hand. What are you saying? The truth, she replied coldly. Your wife thinks very highly of herself. She thinks she's smarter than everyone. But we'll teach her a lesson. Nancy looked at her mother-in-law and didn't recognize the saccharine, stage-managed Paula she'd known. Standing before her was a spiteful, vengeful woman, ready to do anything for money. Leave, Nancy repeated, trying to keep calm. And don't come back here or to our home. What do you mean not home? Anthony bristled. Are you kicking me out? Nancy asked coldly. Yes. I don't want to see you or your mother. Pack your things and go. I need time to think. But the apartment is my premarital apartment, if you forgot. And I have every right to decide who lives in it. You can't do this, the mother-in-law protested. He's your husband. And he's also a traitor, a liar, and a gambler with debts, Nancy shot back. And I haven't decided yet whether I want to stay married to someone like that. Anthony went pale. You're threatening divorce? I'm stating facts. Now get out, both of you. When the door closed behind them, Nancy collapsed into a chair, clutching her head. Betrayal. A vile, calculated betrayal by the people closest to her. How could she have been so blind? How did she not notice what was going on right under her nose? Her phone vibrated. Nancy glanced at the screen automatically. Her cousin Marcus, one of the few relatives she had a warm relationship with. Hi, Marcus, she said, trying to sound calm, though her voice betrayed her. Nancy, what's wrong? Did something happen? Her brother reacted instantly, and then she broke down. Haltingly, swallowing her words, she told him everything, the overheard negotiations, her husband's betrayal, the mother-in-law's threats, Anthony's debts. Scumbag, Marcus summed up tersely after hearing the story. Both scumbags, but with Paula I wouldn't joke if I were you. She seriously hinted at arson. Not outright, but it was a clear hint. Fires happen and all that. So here's what we'll do. Command notes entered Marcus's voice. He hadn't served in special forces for nothing. Right now you close the salon, go home and pack the husband's things. Put him out, change the locks. I'll send some guys, they'll help if he resists. And the salon? I'll come first thing tomorrow morning, we'll install cameras and organize night watches. I've got a couple of solid guys from a security firm. If that psycho mother-in-law has something planned, we'll catch her. Nancy let out a grateful breath. Thank you, Marcus. I don't know what I'd do without you. Anytime, sis. Just hang in there. And remember, you did nothing wrong. They're the traitors, not you. After talking with her brother, Nancy felt a surge of strength. Marcus was right, she had to act. She closed the salon, set the alarm, and drove home. Anthony was not there. Most likely he'd gone to his mother to lick his wounds and hatch new plans. Nancy quickly packed his things into large bags, set them by the door, then called a 24-hour lock change service. An hour later the new keys were hers alone. When the doorbell rang at 1:30 in the morning, she was ready. Opening the door, she saw a flustered Anthony holding his keys. I don't get it, he frowned. Why doesn't my key work? Because I changed the locks, Nancy replied calmly. Your things are in these bags. Take them and go. Nancy, let's talk. Anthony tried to squeeze into the apartment, but she stood firm in the doorway. We have nothing to talk about. You betrayed me. You tried to sell my business behind my back. And for what? For Wendy's apartment and my debts. I'll explain everything, Anthony tried to justify himself. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I really meant well. You're always at work. I thought you were tired of all this. I wanted to surprise you. A surprise? Nancy laughed bitterly. Selling the business I dedicated years of my life to, do you call that a surprise? Well, I'm sorry, Anthony grimaced. I made a mistake. But you can't kick me out over one mistake. Not over one. Over years of neglect, disrespect, indifference, for your debts you didn't tell me about, for conspiring with your mother against me. For betrayal, Anthony, for betrayal. He stood with his head down, and suddenly Nancy realized she felt nothing for him anymore, neither love nor hate, only exhaustion and the desire to end this conversation quickly. Take your things and go, she repeated. Your mom has a couch. Stay there until you find a place. Are you serious? Anthony raised his head. You're throwing me out like a dog? No, Nancy shook her head. I would never throw out a dog. Dogs are loyal. You're not. She closed the door, ignoring his shouts and threats. Later, she called Marcus, and within 15 minutes, 2 of his friends, strong guys with military bearing, were already downstairs. Seeing them, Anthony grabbed his bags and hurriedly retreated. The following days passed in a blur. Nancy installed surveillance cameras inside and outside the salon and hired security. 2 of Marcus's former colleagues took shifts to ensure the salon's safety at night. She changed all the passwords, from the computer to the alarm system. Anthony tried calling, texting, but she didn't respond. Paula also didn't stop trying to get in touch, sometimes with threats, sometimes pleading for her to be reasonable and not destroy her family. Meanwhile, potential buyers continued coming to the salon. Apparently, Anthony and his mother hadn't abandoned their plan to sell the business. Nancy consistently refused, sending the surprised visitors away, and in the evenings, she cried from helplessness and hurt. She barely went home. She slept right in the salon, on the fold-out couch in the break room. She didn't want to return to the apartment where she had recently lived with someone she trusted. You'll ruin yourself like this, Olivia said, seeing the dark circles under her friend's eyes. You need to rest. You can't live at work. It's temporary, Nancy brushed it off, hoping everything would settle down soon. But the story didn't die down. Anthony started spreading rumors among mutual acquaintances that his wife was acting crazy out of luxury, had kicked him out, obsessed with her business. Some people believed him, called Nancy, advising her to stop and think about her family. One evening, as she was closing the salon, Wendy, Anthony's sister, showed up. They hadn't spoken much before, their interests and values were too different. We need to talk, Wendy muttered, squeezing through the door. About a personal matter. Nancy let her in and offered tea. Wendy refused and went straight to the point. What are you doing? You kicked your brother out. You gave your mother a heart attack. A heart attack? Nancy repeated, not believing her ears. Well, not exactly a heart attack, Wendy corrected herself. But her blood pressure shot up, and it took a while to calm her down. And you came here to lecture me? I came to say, stop showing off. Sell your salon, share the money, and live normally. Anthony will forgive everything and come back. Nancy shook her head in astonishment. Do you really think I'll sell my business to buy you an apartment and pay off your brother's debts? So what's wrong with that? Wendy protested sincerely. We're family. My wedding is coming up. Where are we supposed to live? At Mom's. She already took us and Anthony in. It's cramped. And work? Have you tried working? Nancy smirked. Getting an education, building a career. Don't start giving me lessons, Wendy frowned. Not everyone wants to work like a horse. Some of us want to live. And I don't live. Nancy gestured around the salon. What kind of life do you have? Only work, work, work. No entertainment, no rest. Sell your business, then you'll live like a normal person and help us too. Nancy sighed wearily. Wendy, go home. I won't sell the salon. Not now, not later. Accept it and find other ways to solve your problems. What a fool, Wendy snorted, heading for the exit. Family means nothing to you, only your business. You'll regret it. Nancy shook her head. What kind of family was this? All of them trying to intimidate her and make her dance to their tune. 2 days later, what she both feared and anticipated finally happened. It was early morning, around 5 o'clock. Nancy was sleeping in the salon's break room when Marcus's call woke her. Nancy, we've got her, his tense voice said. Your mother-in-law with a can of gasoline at the salon entrance. Nancy jumped, instantly awake. What? How? I was just coming to replace Leon. I saw some figure sneaking in from the parking lot. Looked closer? Exactly yours, thought Paula. She had a can in her hands, matches and a lighter sticking out of her pocket. Leon and I tackled her and called the police. She's giving a statement at the station now. Oh my God. Nancy pressed her hand to her mouth. She really tried to set the salon on fire? Yes, Marcus confirmed grimly. Everything was caught on camera, clear footage, faces, the can, everything. Plus, when we detained her, she was shouting about teaching the blown-up girl a lesson and showing who's boss in the family. Plenty of witnesses. The guys from the cafe next door were just starting their shift. At the police station, Nancy was met by Captain Butler, a middle-aged man with the tired eyes of someone who had seen it all. Nancy Collins, he extended his hand. Have a seat. Tea, coffee? No, thank you. Nothing is needed. Nancy sat down, feeling her knees trembling. Where was she? Where was Paula? She's in temporary detention, the captain said, opening a folder with documents. On charges of attempted arson of a commercial property with intent to destroy property. A serious article. Nancy swallowed the lump in her throat. Did she really do this? I still can't believe it. Unfortunately, yes, the captain nodded. Here, see for yourself. He turned a monitor toward her with the surveillance footage. Nancy saw the night recording, Paula in a dark cloak with a hood, sneaking toward the salon doors. She held a canister that was clearly not empty. Her movements showed it was heavy. The mother-in-law glanced around, took something shiny from her pocket, a lighter. At that moment, 2 figures leapt from the darkness. A brief struggle. Now Paula was sitting on the asphalt, and Marcus held her hands. This is the footage, the captain began. I understand, Nancy nodded. They're using it as evidence in court. Exactly. Did you have conflicts with Paula Smith? Nancy smiled bitterly. Conflicts she and her son, my husband, tried to sell my business without my knowledge. When I refused, the threats began. She openly said that all sorts of things happen in business, fires, thefts. I never thought she would actually go through with it. The captain nodded toward the surveillance installation report lying in front of him. You did well. Did your brother suggest this? Yes, Nancy admitted. He works in a security agency after the army. He understands these things. Nancy is giving a statement, the captain continued. She claims that you destroyed her family, kicked her son out of the house, and refused to provide financial help to relatives. And all this supposedly while they were in a difficult situation. Financially, Nancy shook her head. They wanted me to sell the salon and give them the money, for an apartment for my sister-in-law, to pay off my husband's debts, for my mother-in-law's comfortable old age. And they planned to sell it without my knowledge. I understand, the captain made a note in his notebook. There will be more questions, but for now, The main thing is your decision. Are you going to file a report about the attempted arson? Nancy closed her eyes for a second. Images flashed through her mind, her mother-in-law with a sickly sweet smile, her husband snorting contemptuously at her dreams, secret negotiations behind her back, threats, betrayals. And finally, that gasoline canister, which could have destroyed everything she had built over the years. Yes, she said firmly, opening her eyes. I'm filing a report and will insist on the maximum punishment. Anthony burst into the salon closer to evening, just as Nancy was finishing with her last client. His face was twisted with rage and fear. What have you done? He shouted, ignoring the astonished looks of the customers. Why did you throw my mother in jail? Nancy apologized to the client and led her husband into her office, closing the door tightly. I didn't throw your mother in jail, her own actions did, she said calmly. Attempted arson, a criminal offense. She wasn't going to set fire. Anthony grabbed his head in despair. She just wanted to scare you. It was a bluff. A bluff? Nancy couldn't believe her ears. With a real gasoline canister, matches, and a lighter at 5 a.m. by the salon door. What bluff, Anthony? She was going to destroy my business. You don't understand, he shook his head. Mom isn't like that, she wouldn't. I saw the footage from the cameras. You can watch it too. Everything is clearly visible there. Anthony sank into a chair, burying his head in his hands. What will happen now? Will she get a sentence? Most likely, yes, Nancy nodded. And not a small one. Attempted intentional arson to destroy property carries a sentence of 3 to 5 years. 5 years, he looked at her with horror. Mom is 63. She won't survive prison. You should have thought about that before taking a gasoline canister to my salon, Nancy cut him off. And before threatening me, and before trying to sell my business, she had a choice at every stage. She chose crime. You can't do anything about that. A pleading tone crept into Anthony's voice. She's your husband's mother. Ex-husband, Nancy corrected. I filed for divorce this morning. The documents are already in court. Anthony froze, staring at her as if he had seen a ghost. You're joking? Not at all. Our marriage ended the moment you decided to sell my business behind my back, when you chose debts, your sister, and your mother over me and my dreams. But we can fix everything. Anthony jumped up, trying to grab her hands. I was an idiot, I admit, but I love you. Without you, I'll be lost. Nancy took a step back. You don't love me, Anthony. You love the comfort I provide. Stability, money, status, but not me. That's not true. He almost shouted. I really love you. I'm just confused. Enough. She raised her hand, stopping his flood of words. I don't believe you anymore. I will never believe you. You betrayed me once, you'll do it again. What about your mother-in-law? Anthony abruptly changed his tone. Are you really going to put her in prison? I'm not a judge, Nancy shrugged. The court will decide, but I won't withdraw the report and will testify against her. Then you're a monster, Anthony hissed, his face twisted with hatred. Heartless, only thinking about your own benefit. Really? Nancy smirked. And who tried to sell my business without my knowledge? Who threatened me? Who came to my salon with a gasoline canister? Who is the real heartless monster? She paused. Anthony. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, and found nothing to say. Leave, Nancy said wearily. And don't come back. Any further questions will go through my lawyer. Once the door closed behind Anthony, Nancy sank into her chair, feeling her legs give way. She hadn't shown him her weakness, hadn't let him see her heart breaking. But now, alone, she could admit to herself, Every word he said cut deep. Could she really be a monster? Maybe she should show mercy and withdraw the report? After all, Paula was an elderly woman, her husband's mother. A phone call interrupted her thoughts. The screen displayed the name Marcus. "Sis, how are you?" Her brother's voice sounded concerned. "Barely holding on," Nancy admitted. "Anthony came by, begging me to withdraw the report against his mother. I refused, but doubts gnaw at me. Maybe I'm being too harsh?" There was a pause on the other end. Then Marcus spoke firmly. "Nancy, you're not being harsh. You're protecting yourself and your business. That woman came to your business with gasoline. Do you realize what would have happened if we hadn't stopped her? Everything would have gone up in flames, the salon, neighboring buildings, and there could have been people inside, not to mention that you often stay at the salon overnight." "I understand," Nancy sighed. "No buts," Marcus cut her off. "She's a criminal and must be held accountable by law." After the conversation with her brother, Nancy felt her resolve returning. Marcus was right. She wasn't just defending a business, she was defending her life, her future, her independence. And her mother-in-law had crossed a line beyond forgiveness. The trial took place 2 months later. All that time, Paula remained under house arrest. Her age and lack of a criminal record worked in her favor. Anthony bombarded Nancy with messages and calls, begging her to soften, but she remained steadfast. In the courtroom, Nancy sat beside her lawyer, trying not to look at the defendant's bench, where Paula, gaunt and aged, feigned remorse. Anthony and Wendy sat in the front row, casting burning glares at Nancy. The evidence was undeniable: surveillance footage, witness testimonies, and the defendant's own admissions, though she insisted she only wanted to scare her daughter-in-law, not set fire to the salon. An expert report confirmed that the canister contained gasoline, volatile and flammable enough to destroy the entire building if ignited. When it was her turn to testify, Nancy took the witness stand and recounted everything in a firm voice: the attempts to sell her business, her husband's betrayal, her mother-in-law's threats, and pressure from the family. "Paula repeatedly threatened me," she said, looking the judge in the eye. She continued, "Anything can happen in business: fires, theft, property damage. It's better to settle amicably." I took that as a direct threat and installed surveillance cameras. Unfortunately, my caution proved justified. When she finished, silence filled the courtroom. Even Anthony seemed stunned by the magnitude of the situation when seen from her perspective. Paula, giving her testimony, tried to portray herself as a victim of circumstances. "I just wanted to put some sense into my daughter-in-law. She destroyed our family, kicked my son out, refused to help when we had difficulties. I knew the salon had cameras and security. I didn't intend to set anything on fire, just to scare her and make her reconsider." But her words sounded unconvincing against the material evidence: the canister of gasoline, matches, and lighter. The trial lasted 3 days. On the 3rd day, the verdict was delivered: 5 years of imprisonment in a general regime colony. As the judge read the sentence, Paula broke down in tears, Wendy covered her face with her hands, and Anthony looked at Nancy with such hatred that she felt uneasy. "Happy now?" he whispered as she walked past after the session ended. "You got what you wanted through my mother in jail. Hope you choke on your salon." Nancy stopped and looked at her ex-husband. Their divorce had been finalized a week ago. "I didn't seek this, Anthony. Your mother's actions and your betrayal brought this about. I'm sorry it ended this way. Really sorry." "Go to hell with your pity," he spat and turned away. She left the courthouse feeling a strange emptiness. There was no joy, no satisfaction in victory. Only exhaustion and bitterness at how low people you once considered family could fall. Life went on. Nancy threw herself into work, expanding the salon, developing new services, training staff. Nancy's salon became a true brand in the city. Clients booked appointments a month in advance. Competitors tried to lure her specialists away with exorbitant salaries. 6 months after the trial, Nancy rented the neighboring space and opened a school for aspiring professionals. Now she not only provided services but also trained a new generation of hairdressers, makeup artists, and manicurists. "You're incredible," Olivia said, watching their joint venture flourish. "After everything that happened, anyone else would have broken, but you've only grown stronger." "Not stronger," Nancy shook her head. "I just finally realized I can rely only on myself, and that's freeing." One day, scrolling through social media, she came across a photo of her former sister-in-law. Wendy posed in a revealing outfit in front of a luxury hotel. The caption read, "Dream job. Dubai welcomes beauties." Nancy smirked. After all the lofty speeches about weddings and family values, Wendy had taken the simplest route. But that was her choice. Just as Paula had a choice, to live honestly or break the law. And just as Anthony had a choice, to support his wife or betray her. That evening, closing the salon, Nancy lingered at the entrance, gazing at the sign with her own name. 3 years ago, she had timidly dreamed of a small basement space where she could work for her own enjoyment. Now she had a thriving business, a team of professionals, a school, and plans to expand into a network. The price had been high. She had lost a family that, as it turned out, had never truly been her family, but she had gained confidence in herself, her abilities, and her future. Nancy smiled and switched off the lights. Tomorrow would be a new day, and she would meet it, as always, with her head held high. A strong woman who knows what she wants and will not let anyone stand in her way. In a family business, the family must be real. That lesson she had learned well. But if a real family isn't there, one can create it anew, from like-minded people, friends, those who value and respect you for who you are, not for what they can get from you. And that was the most important lesson she took from the entire ordeal.